to order the March 13th, 2015 public hearing of the City of Prescott Preservation Commission meeting. Members present at this meeting are, starting at my right, let's see, we're in different order here, DJ Butkey, Russ Buchanan, and Christy Hastings. And I am Trinity Shelton, Vice Chairman. This is an open public hearing and is being videotaped and tape recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, local cable and or radio stations, and also may be rebroadcast. The number of commission members present is 4. It will still require 4 votes for a majority. Yes, okay. All parties wishing to be heard on an issue are required to raise their hands and be recognized by the chairman prior to speaking. Speakers will be expected to state their name and address for the record so that we may know who is speaking and be able to contact them at a later date if necessary. Please turn off any cell phones or electronic devices, and if you haven't already done so, please sign the attendance roster before leaving the meeting. Thank you. So, first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the February 13, 2015 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Any objections?
Were we supposed to just consider the minutes that were posted on an email, or these that are disregard these? Okay.
The first set of minutes
This is
sent out
December.
were not fully complete, and then Suzanne amended them and resent the minutes to you, I believe.
Within the last couple of days, they were sent out, yes, and said disregard the printed minutes and only consider the emailed minutes. If there are no challenges, if we could get in.
Excuse me, Ms. Chairman. The attendance on this may be inaccurate from last meeting.
That's correct. Gary was not at the last meeting, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll note
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the meeting that were posted on email.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second?
that. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All of those in favor signify by raising your right hand and stating aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Approval of minutes of February 13th, 2015 meeting. Next item to address is HP 15-005, 112 West Gurley Street, Historic Preservation District Number 1, Courthouse Plaza, APN number 113-15111. The request for approval of awning, canvas, change, and signage for Bloom Tree Realty and tile replacement at doorways. Kat Moody making the presentation.
Yes, so I'm just going to make a correction on that. So the address for this property is 106 North Cortez. So that's just to clarify. And this building is listed in the National Register. It was constructed, it was reconstructed after the fire of 1900, so it was completed later in 1900. And the building has previously been used for banking, professional offices, and retail. And it was the site of the Eagle Drug Store business, which was a very popular business for much of the commercial history on this site. The awnings, which you can see here in the aerial image, were installed around the early 1980s, and so those awnings have been in place since the early 1980s. And I'm going to give you just a brief trip down memory lane, because this building has seen several different versions of treatment. This is from 1930. So this is when Eagle Drug occupied the space. You can't exactly see a lot of detail, but you can see they actually had the horizontal awning treatment here that's the same as what's on the Bashford Burmester building now. This is from 1935. This is a Greyhound bus that stopped at Eagle Drug to allow their the people on the bus to go to the soda fountain there in the front of the Eagle Drug. And then 1950. And the building itself looks fairly consistent up until the 70s, when this was done, which was tragic,
Yes.
and luckily has been removed, and it was just an applied modernism effort. And that, you can see the grandfathered sign sitting on the top of the roof was installed between 50, where it's not present, and early 70s. And then that work's been reversed, and we are back to the structure that has pretty much the look and feel from.
Excuse me, Kat, could that grandfathered sign have been part of the 70s renovation? I mean, the sign that is. I mean,
Yeah, it was installed when the bank occupied the space. So I don't know exactly when that happened, when it went in, but it was between the 50s and the 70s.
So the bank was responsible for the
Time and
remodel?
temperature sign.
Well, no, the remodel, that remodel that we just.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I see.
So now, currently, these are current conditions, and I took some photos so that you could see some of the architectural details here. The building is generally a blonde brick, but then it has these gray stone accent bands, and there's some close-up details of that. So these are existing conditions. I just took these yesterday. This is the front entry. This is part of the tile area that the applicant is requesting to retile. And actually, can you go to my office, and on the floor is the tile sample and the awning sample? Would you be able to bring it? Yeah. Thank you. We'll have the tile sample once George brings it down. So this had outdoor or carpet, indoor-outdoor carpet inlaid into this panel. So right now that's been removed, and it's just the tile with the substrate underneath. And then along the side of Cortez Street, there's several door entries. Now, you're not proposing to change this tile, but you're proposing further down Cortez. This was a section that had carpet, and you are proposing to tile this. So this is part of the tile, and then the entry area would be retiled as well. And then the other portion of this request is the signage. This is a mock-up of the proposed awning change and signage on the awnings. And currently, the awnings are a bright green color. You can see probably better on, well, it's a little dark on this view, but this is a green colored awning. The awning changes to go to like a medium toned gray, and we do have a sample which will be forthcoming. And then the logo for Bloomtree Realty would be imprinted on the awning, the 45-degree face, and the logo is shown here. So blue and green and grayish colors. And then the additional signage for this business would be here on the top of the sign that right currently that signage, this sign is grandfathered, but we are allowing the business to change just the portion of the text of the grandfathered sign so that their signage won't take up any more square footage than the current National Bank lettering and text on the top of that time and temperature sign. And I believe they do plan to repaint the background of that sign to freshen it up, and then the Bloomtree Realty would be imprinted where it says National Bank right now on that time and temperature sign. So with this signage and the two signs on the awning, and then an under canopy sign that will say Visitor Center and direct people to the front doors of the building, that signage all totals just under 80 square feet, which is the allotted square footage for a building that has 3 or more businesses. There is an intention to have other tenants in this building, and we've been told that they probably will have 3 businesses in this building, and so future businesses would potentially be able to place signage. These requests would come before the Preservation Commission, but they would be able to place signage on the other awnings that you can see here in the image right now that are blank. And we do have a representative for the applicant here today, and so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you and for discussion and questions.
Thank you, Kat. I have one quick question in regards to the verbiage here on the presentation. States that the Bloomtree Realty logo and text would be imprinted on the western awning along Gurley Street and the northern awning along Cortez Street.
It's the south awning, actually, yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
the south.
It's
yeah.
this awning,
So
yeah.
it's just written wrong in the.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is my error.
Okay. That's all I wanted to clarify. Does anybody have any questions or comments for the applicants?
I just had one, and that would be, looking at that charcoal gray sample that's being passed around, and comparing that to the black and white presentation, or the colored presentation of what we're seeing on the logo and, I would say, slogan. It would appear to me, and it looks like in this rendering, that the words realty and expanding what's possible
That's worse.
would have to be in a lighter color than what's shown here, because what we're looking at shows
You're
almost the same color
You're
as the
saying
charcoal.
realty expanding what's possible is basically the same color as this sample. So
Yeah, it doesn't show so much there, but it does in the
Yeah.
actual sample.
So you want to, okay.
And that's kind of what the rendering indicates.
Yes, it looks white here.
And that was the only clarification I was after.
Anybody else?
Well, as far as that tile goes, that's just going to go into that inlay where that floor mat, or that weather mat was in?
So it's going to be here. And are you proposing to replace this so the black and white tile, they're proposing to remove this black and white tile and fill this entire area with?
I see. Was there a reason for removing that old tile?
It's weather's pretty badly. Not holding up real well.
Do you have any intention after you tile of using some sort of a walkout mat over the tile at the exit to protect from further wear? And if you would approach the microphone and answer and state your name and address.
So you're asking if we'll put an entry mat there
Yeah,
over the tile?
I'm
Can you
sorry.
state your name and address for the
thank you.
record?
Sorry. Tammy Maloof, 325 West Gurley Street, Suite 201.
Thank you.
Okay. You're talking about this carpeted area.
Exactly,
We
yes.
probably would place a mat over the tile just for further anti-slippage.
An anti-wear, that kind of
Yes.
thing, yeah. Doesn't have to be
That's a
permanent.
porcelain tile. It shouldn't wear like this. I think this was probably installed in the 70s or 80s when the bank took over. That tile is also inside the building, and it's just a very thin ceramic tile. This is porcelain. It should wear very well outside.
And as far as,
There is a slight texture to this tile surface. It's not super smooth. It's not super rough either, but it seems a little less of a glossy, slick surface than the mosaic tile that's currently in place. This tile's not in bad shape. It's not perfect either. I mean, you can see here, it's dirty. It needs to be cleaned, and there is some chipping along. There is some weathering on where the interface here with where the mat used to be, but it's not in horrible shape. But it is a slicker surface, and it's much more of probably a slipping hazard, which is probably why they did the in-place carpet as an entry feature when the bank went in the space.
Yes. Did I hear you right? This is the same tile that's going to be carried into the inside, so you're going to have that
We are
flow?
going to preserve, this mosaic tile is inside the building. And I think that was done when the bank moved in and did their remodel. So it's not historic tile. Or maybe the 80s is considered historic at this point. But no, this tile would just be outside. The mosaic is inside, and we will preserve that.
That's in that main lobby area
Yes.
where the teller.
During the walk, yeah, in the walkways. And then there's carpet in the office areas where the desks were placed.
and are you planning to match the color of the tile with a grout, essentially, or are you trying to contrast it? You're going to match it?
I think we'll try to match it.
Be wise.
I think that'll look nicer than a contrast.
It'll probably stay cleaner.
Yes.
Looking, anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Anyone have any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve or approve with modifications or anything like that?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I recommend that this commission approve HP 15-005, request for awning canvases change and signage for Bloomtree Realty and tile replacement at doorway.
Thank you for your motion. Can we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll take Russ's second on that. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand and stating aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much for your presentation. All right. So the next order of business today is follow-up presentation for previously approved work. Presented by Kat Moody, yes, or by DJ?
DJ. If DJ wants to do it, I'm more than willing.
Thank you, folks.
Well, what I would recommend that we'd all share what our recollections of those projects might be.
I haven't used this. Am I supposed to use this?
You missed an opportunity to use the gavel.
One more opportunity.
Okay, I'll use it then.
Okay, so this is, DJ has gone out and photographed the follow-up for items that we either had previously, the work had previously not been done from before 2014, and then all the projects that were reviewed that had been completed in 2014. So this was a project from 2012. but the work has just now been completed, and this was a request to modify the door into the second floor of the Union Block building. This door used to be a plywood panel painted to look like a jail, a guy behind bars in a jail.
With a bad guy behind it.
Yeah. And so this is the new door.
Historic.
It was very historic.
And,
And it was also tied into the Lone Sporter next door.
Yep. So this door then leads to a grand stairway that accesses the second story of the Union Block. The other work that took place that was reviewed by this commission was the windows. So I've got a picture here of the door and the windows.
Those were the restored windows,
Yes.
because what they had actually replaced were, there was some aluminum insets in there that were well weathered. So they brought it back to the original double hung windows.
And so they re-weighted and refinished all the wood, and those are beautiful, historic, restored windows now.
And of note, also over that doorway, there's a light well. It doesn't show in this photograph, but what that does do is it allows some light to come in through those clerestories that you see on the picture underneath the terracotta-looking colored windows. And there's some original building or wood moldings that actually encased all those windows that were inside that well. So it's got some historic value.
Okay, so the next item, we reviewed the changes to the exterior of the Elks. So this was window replacement, brick restoration, painting, the storefront modifications, bringing the storefront up to current, the access into the second and third floors up to an ADA standard. And so this is the Elks Theater, and I think I have another shot here. So this shows also in this request was the restoration of the balcony on the third floor. You can see that work here. And then on the right is the modification to the entryway into the second and third floor offices.
I think also of note was the idea that this building was entirely re-enveloped in a new stucco system because the old systems had failed. Some of the old masonry work, I mean, it was all non-reinforced bearing masonry that had actually failed in a number of spots. So they actually put a brand new coating over the entire building, and I believe that was an intricately colored stucco system.
Well, it did have some color in the base, and it's not a full stucco system. You can see in the right-hand image where you can still see the brick courses.
Right.
So it's a light, it's a spray-on.
Yeah, it was a coating though.
Yeah, it was a coating, yeah.
To maintain the integrity of
And
the
then it was
brick.
painted over, but I believe they did have tinting in the base
They
color to allow for longevity. So that is the Elks. This was a carriage house remodel on Mount Vernon, and this is a shot from the side of this the carriage house remodel. You may recall that this, and I think we have shots of the front building later in the presentation, but the front building was a house that's wrapped in brick, so we'll get to see that later in the presentation. But the applicant wanted to remodel the carriage house so they could live in it while they remodeled the front house on Mount Vernon.
Yeah,
So
this was under construction, and then also of note, the alley view of that didn't show in that view, but it actually had a stuccoed finish versus that clapboard siding or the hardy board siding because the grade changed back there and
Yep.
the failure of that wall. So what they did is they just had that as stucco.
Yep. And this is over in the Pinecrest area. and this is on Cochise Street. This was a application, we reviewed both support or non-support for the variance that was required. They required a variance in order to have the house sit within the part of the structure to extend into the front setback. And so this was a much smaller house that had been delisted off the register due to changes, and the owners wanted to expand it. And then they also, as part of the variance application, were required there was a garage building to be constructed in the back of the property, and that has not been constructed, but this is the remodel for the main house.
I was told that garage is coming. It was just a function of economics at this time.
I believe that Board of
And you-
Adjustment required that the garage be part in order to approve the variance. Yeah.
But it is forthcoming according to the occupants. And then you can see in this picture that on the top picture there, that whole extension to the right is an addition, as you see down in the lower picture. Oh, and also what they had also done is they went around and completely resealed and refinished the building as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really came out nice.
And this is the expansion of Bill's Pizza into the second space, the adjacent space to the south. And so you can see here a view, the front of the Bill's Pizza building on the top, and then a shot interior, and you can see the wood beam there between what used to be, the two different spaces. So that's the dividing line, and they opened up that wall. They installed a full fire sprinkler system, and then expanded into the other space to the south.
And of note also, you can see the grade change there where they actually had to ramp up.
And this was a request for door and window trim changes for Terra Thai restaurant just down the street from Bill's. And so they wrapped the aluminum window trim, you can see there in the photo on the left, in wood, and then those doors were part of the request. There was just a traditional aluminum storefront door system in that space before. And then just one storefront down, or two, is this was a request for the space that used to be Kendall's Burgers and Ice Cream, and this was a request for modification for this door to be restored back to a double door situation with a right angle and 90-degree turn versus this 45 or angled return to the door. This has not been done.
What has been done is they've done a lot of the interior work, and we did show a picture in the back of that rear exit
Yeah,
that we
it'll
did
be
cut in.
later. Yeah.
And then that front entry is what has been approved is a double door configuration of the original double doors that they have actually preserved.
Yeah, the doors from when it was Dent's Ice Cream.
Yes.
I believe that one of the conditions, and this was brought up, I think, by Robert Burford at a previous meeting. He said, I'm not sure that those original Dent's doors are going to meet ADA requirements, so they're required to have openers on them for ADA because they are small. So that's, the building department said you can put the old Dent's doors back in, but you need an opener so that somebody can push a button and both doors will open. So I believe that's what they intend to do. And this was a request for signage for Terra Thai. And this was a request for signage for In Recovery magazine to go over this door, and as you can see, it's never been.
Well, they found another location.
Oh, did they?
They
Okay.
moved.
Yeah, well, they made a proposal here, but then they found another spot to
Okay,
be in.
so that's why, but we did review and approve signage over that door. This was a monument sign for Hacienda Inn.
And that just came out, that Hacienda Inn, that just came out as proposed. And it's interesting also that the integration of the alignment of the flags that we previously approved.
Yes, we did review those.
So that really is kind of a gateway statement to the whole,
Property,
yeah,
Yeah.
and downtown, really,
It-
coming
it is.
down the hill.
yeah. This was a modification of the cross, which used to be longer, and then additional signage. So we reviewed several different sign locations for this property at the First Baptist Church. The cross was cut, and then they were able to install the signage underneath of it that you see in place. And then on the rear of the building, on the top right, you can see the Smith Center, and those signs were part of the review. And then on each corner, we also approved the First Baptist Church, the home of Christian Academy signage that brackets the property on each end. And this was signage for Michael Taylor Architects. You can see the signage in place. That pretty much turned out exactly as it was presented. And this was the request for signage for Shannon's Cheesecake. And this was you may recall, rather than just imprinting on the soft fabric valance, this is an actual stiff valance that allowed them to have a slightly larger signage band, and then they anticipated it would be easier to change out in the future.
I took some shots of the details on this thing too. This was very, very well executed. And I mean, it's a very rigid structure, so I mean, it's not subject to any kind of wind loads or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. And this was a request for the fence that you see on the right that returns to the house and then runs along the south side of this house. This is on the 300 block of Mount Vernon, right up towards the top of the hill there. And so we approved the fence, and then there was also a grade change in the back to allow better access to a deck that's in the rear. So there was like a retaining wall aspect as well. And this was the request for, I think this one was the roof.
For the mechanical?
The mechanical alterations to the roof, and this was the best shot we had that showed how clean the roof looks now. Because you don't see that thing sticking up. So there was an elevator shaft and a mechanical housing structure on the roof that were removed because they were no longer needed. And I think they still have an access hatch, but it's much more of a flat, low-profile type of thing versus an actual building that's sitting on top of the roof to serve as access.
Yeah, they went with I believe a hydraulic elevator system versus the old penthouse pulley system.
Yep, yeah. And this was a request to enclose a portion of a covered deck as a sunroom, and this is on Mount Vernon. And you can see in the lower picture that enclosed portion with the sunroom windows. And then they still left part of the covered deck, so. This was a request to rebuild a garage. This is in Historic Homes at Hacienda. And this is, as you can see, under construction. The photo on the right shows them placing the stone, the stone veneer there at the base of the wall. And this, they were matching the look of their neighbor's garage, so they're just reproducing what had already been established for a architectural style next door.
And on the residence as well, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I took a couple shots of the residence, but that was under construction. It was fascinating.
This was a request for signage on the rear of the Birdcage Saloon, and as you can see, nothing has happened in the rear of the Birdcage Saloon, so if this hasn't been executed, I believe they were going to clean up the back facade of this when they do install the signage. That was what the applicant had indicated.
In here also, there was a picture of the sprinkler riser room that was previously approved.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
it's on the
remember-
right.
I'm remembering that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and then, but then I see we have a request for a sign too.
And this is the front building of that one we looked at on Mount Vernon that had the carriage house remodel. So they came back to us to get approval to remove the non-original brick facade. So this house, as you can see in the shot on the lower right, originally had horizontal shiplap siding, and a previous owner had decided to just veneer the entire house with brick. And so the current owner is going to remove all that brick and then restore the house back to its original horizontal wood siding, which is still in place underneath, so they'll have to do some repair. This work really hasn't, very little of the work on the main house has been completed. We'll probably see this again in a follow-up once it's more complete. And this was a request for signage at the Burmester Building for Old Capitol Market signage, and the Superstition Meadery had a sign to the left of this. And then there was a request for signage for a change in the Valance signage in the rear, which is the photo you see on the right. So the rear signage still has not the Valance hasn't been swapped out, but the front signage is in place. This was a request at the Elks to install a fencing system under this stairway in order to secure the area to prevent transients from occupying it. And so that has not been done. And this was a request to swap out the signage on the old Kendall's Burgers and Ice Cream. The signage portion was not approved, so we still have a Kendall sign there. The applicant indicated they would be back before us with a better sign proposal that's more reflective of what they want to do. But we did approve the modification you see on the lower right, which is a new door that in the rear of the building that gives access to this area of refuge, which is also used by Bill's Pizza. And so this lower recessed area is used as an exiting for both what will be Marino's Mob Burger here through this door, and then Bill's Pizza has a rear exit that serves uses the area of refuge in the rear of the structure. So this is a new door installed in that rear. This was a request for the Realty Executives awning. We had reviewed the signage previously, and this was just an awning with the real estate sign on it. This is right adjacent to the Chamber of Commerce. This has been done as of 2 days ago, but in this shot we didn't. This was from before, and so this is the Sam Hills Company, and so the signage wasn't up, but it is now today. So I just noticed it yesterday.
And the snow's gone.
And the snow's gone. And,
20 minutes later.
and that's it.
Nice.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank
We had
you,
a lot of work
DJ.
that last year.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of stuff got updated. A few things still outstanding.
Yep.
Yeah.
As general, usually happens. Okay, so the next item, update of current events or other items of note. Anything that needs to be addressed?
I do not have anything.
Okay.
Do you find some representation from this commission for the Flagstaff event this summer?
I did not.
So you're still in search of?
Well, I'm just, Christy had indicated she might be interested in it, but then she looked at the sessions and decided against it. So at this point, I'm the only representative from Prescott going. If you are interested,
I may be, yes.
okay, well,
I say that, but the truth of the matter is I am interested, and I have that time during that was it June or July?
it's May
May?
13th through 17th, 13th.
Let me check again on
Yeah,
that.
it's the middle of the week.
It's
Is-
Thursday,
Yeah.
well.
It was a lot more convenient when it was here.
And it will be back here in 2 years. I believe they're committed for Phoenix next year, and then it will be in Prescott the year following. And generally speaking, when it's held here, we try to send the entire commission because it's at that point, it's very affordable and convenient. But go ahead and talk to me and we'll.
I shall do so. The
I have a
calendar.
question that it may be personal, and if we don't need to discuss it here, we can discuss it afterwards. I just got this in the mail, and it's a product for historic homes supposedly.
Yeah.
And I wondered if anybody here had ever heard of
Yes.
this magnetite?
Yes, magnetite is a magnetic storm window system. And I actually have some.
You mean that you just
You
put 'em
just,
up, like-
you just put it up.
And
There's, they install a flange around the window, which is magnetic. And then the magnetite window is just a storm window that just, it secures via magnets.
with a magnet, yeah.
And so it's easy to take it off if you want to open the window or do anything. And it
Just the
just,
sash? It's the sash
it's,
pane?
yeah, and then they have them where they're split so that if you want to have it be, on but openable, they can do that as well. I have some images provided to me by a homeowner on Pleasant Street who just had them installed.
Oh, okay.
And they had severe condensation problems on their historic windows. And he said and he sent me pictures of the window without the magnetite and the window with, and there's condensation, heavy condensation on the original window, and the window with the magnetite has no condensation at all. And he says it's making a huge difference in heating and then also sound privacy. There's a real benefit for noise as well. And so they are pretty well represented. They've been at the Statewide Historic Preservation Conference the last several years with samples, and that's how I discovered them, and then I've been recommending them.
Good.
And that's why I got the follow-up photos from the gentleman on Pleasant Street, because I had indicated I thought it was a good system for what he was trying to achieve, and he
Well,
is
you
very
always just,
happy.
you always just wonder about this claim, and I'm just verifying it. And you
Yes.
say it is,
It is.
it's sanctioned
it's a
for-
great-
for historic homes.
It's a
Uh-huh.
great system.
Great.
And I
Good
would
to know.
recommend it to anybody who has historic windows versus window replacement. If they're trying to achieve energy efficiency, sound privacy, and flexibility to still open your windows in the summer.
Rather than painting your windows shut.
Yes. Yeah, so, and he's indicated to me that if people want to come look at his installation, he's more than willing to share, and he's thrilled with it.
This is on Pleasant, you said?
Yeah,
North or south?
north, yeah. Yep, so I
Good to
think
know.
that's a great product. I think
Great.
it will save a lot of historic windows.
Good,
Yep.
yeah. That's what we need.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Sure.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay. All right. On that note, we will adjourn the meeting of March 13, 2015 for the Prescott Preservation Commission. Thank you.
Good job, Kristen.
That clock's wrong.
Talk slower.